Okay. Today we will continue with the Chinese political system. And last time we talked about the socialism with Chinese characteristics. So let's see how the Chinese government actually practicing what is preaches. So still call it the socialism with Chinese characteristics. Number three. And I selected this picture because there are obviously a red part and a blue part. It's a contrast. So we talk about the red parts, what they tell the Western world what is the socialism with Chinese characteristics. So what we try to do is now checking against their claim. So I will be using what the Chinese government actually practicing, what they do. Are they doing what they say they would do? Okay, again, we start with the quotes, this time from Deng Xiaoping. Ours is an economically backward country with a population of 1 billion. Now today is 1.4 billion. And when Deng Xiaoping say that the Chinese people's average GDP per capita is less than 100 uh, US dollars per year. So poor, sure. If we took the capitalist role, a small number of people in certain areas would quickly grow rich, while the overwhelming majority of the people would still remain in poverty, scarcely able to feed and clothe themselves. So he is very much concerned with the common people. So only the socialist system can eradicate poverty. That is Deng Xiaoping's claim. He has a vision. I really admire how good his idea is. He already ruled out the capitalistic role, but it doesn't mean you don't take the lessons from the capitalistic world. So he now given up communism and want to start with the road into socialist. So let the CCT explain that to you.
Since China began its reform and opening up policy in 1978, the Communist Party of China has been continuing to adapt the basic principles of socialism to the conditions of China. By summarizing the successes and failures of building socialism in China and other socialist countries, and also by analyzing the problems faced by developed countries during their development, the CPC has successfully opened up a unique path for socialism with Chinese characteristics. The phrase socialism with Chinese characteristics was first coined by Deng Xiaoping, the architect of Chinese economic reform, at the 12th National People's Congress in 1982. Deng overthrew the historical view that a market economy is synonymous with capitalism, and that socialism can only be achieved through a planned economy. A planned economy is not the condition of socialism, because there is planning under capitalism. The market economy happens under socialism too. Planning and market forces are both ways of controlling economic activity, Deng explained. To be more specific, socialism is the common rule of the path taken by the CPC, while Chinese characteristics are what the basic principles of socialism really embody in China. Economically, China sticks to a multi-ownership-oriented basic market economy system, with public ownership predominating. Politically, China opposed the system of the People's Congress, a system of multi-party cooperation and political consultation, and a system of regional ethnic autonomy. Culturally, China keeps its socialist value system at its core, while simultaneously respecting differences and expanding common ground. Guided by the theory of socialism with Chinese characteristics, China has developed into the world's second largest economy and has seen people's livelihoods greatly improve over the past few decades. Currently, China regards itself as being in the primary stage of socialism, with the principle of socialism with Chinese characteristics so far proving to be a successful route towards China becoming a well-off, democratic, civilized, and harmonious modern nation.
Okay, whether it's true or not, let's see. So remember last time we point out the so-called socialism with Chinese characteristics is practiced through a path of scientific, independent, open, peaceful, cooperative, and common development. So there's a number of adjectives here. Let's look at each adjectives. Scientific. The I'm quoting examples. Okay, so the first example is the special economic zones. So we see that it doesn't apply a complete transformation of the country into a market economy. It tried it out in special regions, and then after trying this, and then they expanded this trial into more and more regions. So let's look at the history. The officials in the Guangdong province, led by the provincial party secretary Xi Jinping's father, Xi Yong-sun, too, seized the initiative, starting with the investment project in Shakao, prepared by Yun Gang on behalf of the Hong Kong-based Chinese Merchants Stream Navigation Company. This project, initially a ship-breaking facilities, recycling of ships, was approved by Li Xinian in June 31st. And then another officials presented to Beijing a proposal to give border facility to the coastal provinces of the Guangdong and Fujian to attract foreign investment and additional exemptions in 4 cities, namely Shenzhen, which is next to Hong Kong, and Zhuhai, which is next to Macau, Shantou, independent locations in the Guangdong province, and then Simons, which is opposite to Taiwan Strait. Again, the coldest distance from Taiwan in the Fujian province. The proposal was approved, and then 4 special economic zones was officially established in 1979. Okay, so 1979, in the initial proposal in around the beginning of the year, by the mid of that year, then we have 4 special economic zones. Then it develops quite a bit of time, and then in 1984, so a number of years later, then several another 14 coastal cities also open up. So Dalian, Qinghao, etc., etc. So we see the China, in that sense, Chinese is using a scientific process. It have a policy, test the policy, see whether the policy delivers what they want. If not, then they will adjust the policy. But if it's successful, then you will start spreading the policy out to the other part of the Chinese territory. So it is almost like a scientific method, and it's also known as the crossing the river by touching the pebbles on the riverbed. They are trying step by step improving, and with a overall objective of moving to the other side of the river, or moving the economy of China into larger economy. The China's largest special economic zone is now will be the Hainan Island. It is just approved not too long ago. So that will have a very significant impact both to China and the rest of the world, because a large Hainan Island, the whole island will be a free economic zone, already starting building the process. Since 1992, the State Council has opened a number of border cities. In addition, opened all the capital cities of the inland provinces and autonomous regions. In addition, another 15 free trade zones, 32 state-level economic and technology development zones, and 53 new and high-tech industrial development zones has been established. So they are slowly changing every part of the country's by adapting. Sorry. Okay, so that's the one part of that. Another example is poverty alleviation. Again, it is successful because they adopted a scientific approach. So about by 2015, the central government revised the poverty line, ruling that people with an annual income of less than $400 per year will in absolute poverty. But okay, so that's the definition changed from a lower number into a higher number by 2015. And then in 2014, the central government published the opinions on innovative mechanism to promote rural poverty alleviation and development in order to find the real poor and really alleviate poverty. The state planned a national database where every poor household is registered, where their progress can be tracked, and where they can be managed dynamically. By 2019, the system registered data of 128,000 villages and 290,000 households, and then identify several provinces as most poverty-stricken areas. So they are concentrating their efforts into these areas. Okay, the second adjective is Chinese adopt a independent policy. So what does it mean? In terms of policy, we know that China do not form any alliances with any other country. They can be partners, but they will not have a treaty to link the two countries into a military alliance. There's none of this. Even with, say, the partners with the Russia or the partners with Pakistan, it is partners, but they have no military treaties to link their armies together. The other thing is Chinese practice the so-called non-interference of other countries' domestic affairs. So it will not tell any other country how to run their own country. And Chinese foreign policy also emphasis on mutual respect and win-win policies. It is not a winner-take-all policy. Open. China will continue to open up. The graph on the right is a graph showing the annual foreign investment into China. So it is a jigsaw graph because on January every year we set to zero, and then we'll talk about how much money it has get from investing from outside. So we see that the from the left is 2020, on the right is 2020. 2000 and 2020. So this is about 20 years of graph showing the foreign direct investment into China, and we see that the values gradually increase as shown in the black line there. So the foreign direct investment into China surged about 28.7% year on year to at the moment is around 90.96 billion US dollars in January to June 2021. Of course, the base is quite low at the very beginning, but we see that more and more money is flowing into China and demonstrating that it must be opening up. Otherwise, it will not allow so much money going into China. So that is one part showing that China is now will continue to open. Although last year, 2020 is a difficult year in the world because of the COVID, but China still have a larger foreign investment into China than any years before it. So Chinese continue to grow in terms of opening up, accepting foreign investment. Peaceful. Historically, even we are talking about the 1400s when Zhang Ke served as the Grand Director and then the Chief Envoy during his sea voyages. China did not colonize or capture anyone as slaves. So that is about 600 years ago. Today, the current government has not initiated any war with any country throughout the history of People's Republic of China. So we cannot say Chinese is aggressive because we know that China haven't started any war. There are a little bit of border miniatures, for example, with India. And then China has also helped the Korean, the Northern Korea to resist the South Korea. And China also had helped Vietnam to resist the South Vietnam. Other than that, China has entered into a little bit of border disputes with India and Vietnam, but they are very small scale conflict, and they are usually managed and then will end in a couple of months maximum. So China has not sent out any army to invade any country for a long time. So we can call it a peaceful. Okay, so that's my part of the presentation. I want to give more time for discussion. So I will stop share and then welcome discussions. Anyone?
I was interested that the figures for poverty were so low.
That was after the initial batch of reduction. The total poor people lived out of poverty in the last 40 years is almost the whole country.
Yes, yes. But
And
276,000 villages and I've
Yeah.
forgotten 100 and those families. I thought it would have been more. Yes.
Yeah, well, that was in the 2015. So they have already lifted quite a bit of people out of poverty. But by 2015, there are still that many, put it that way. So how do you tackle the last batch of the most difficult families? So whatever they have tried, it doesn't work to this large batch so far, isn't it? So now they have to really tackle it on a case by case basis. How can you tackle case by case basis? First, all you have to record them and you know that the case exists. Find them out, do a full survey, find who are the poor people first. And then when you find them, put them into a database as a record. And then send officials to target these regions or families one by one. So in the last 8 years, about 3 million Chinese officials were directly involved in poverty alleviation full time. One of the ways they do is actually send these officials to stay with the people they are going to help in their family, in their village, and then work together so that these families eventually can be lifted out of poverty. So the officials very, they call it a eat bitter, work very hard with the poor families in order to solve their problems. Yes, I heard a question. Yeah.
Is it mainly in the rural farming communities that poverty exists?
Um, a region is poor is due to a number of geographic and social issues. For most of the situation is because the land is almost infertile because of many years of exploitation. So there's one reason. The other reason is lack of rainfall. You don't have water, you can't grow anything. So you will be stuck very poor. Another factor is the traffic is limited. For example, you are living in. Remember, we saw a video about the students climbing a cliff to school and back to home. This geographic isolation, even if they have grown something, they can only use the food to feed themselves. It is very difficult to transfer that kind of produce outside of their community. So there are a number of reasons why some regions are poor. Obviously, there's another group is due to the circumstances. For example, the disabled, the mentally challenged, or children losing their parents and so forth. So there are another group of problem causing a family to be poor is like that. Another problem is cultural. Some, especially in the minority ethnic groups, their work ethics is not up to the Chinese standard in a sense. They they already say, "Oh, I'm poor. It is my fate. I'm not going to work hard. I'm poor. I'm poor. I'm." So changing their attitude is another big issue. You have to encourage them and say, "Well, if you work hard, you will see the future. You have your life better. Don't stick there." I think I remember we saw a video about the officials trying to encourage the girls from Xinjiang to go out and then work. Initially, there's a lot of reluctancy to leave their village. We know they are poor, but they say, "Oh, this is my fate." And then the family situation, I don't want the girls to leave. I rather have them married young and then. But the Chinese officials say, "No, that will put you into a life of hardship. Why don't you try to go to the coast, learn a skill, be a factory worker, work for a few years, see what you like, whether you like it or not. And then if you don't like it, you can always come back. But that will change your life." So a number of girls take up that opportunity and yes, it changed their lives. So the reason why there are so many people poor, again, like here, our homeless problem is not a single issue, isn't it? It's not just because they are poor. Some of them have drug issues, some of them have mental issues and so forth, and that make them homeless. Some of them is because of um, the family issues, escaping, for example, family violence and so forth. So in order to make them um, a contributing members of the society, we need individual effort to help every one of them, and their situations are different.
Are there any breakdowns on which countries are investing in China with the foreign investment?
I don't have that data at hand. Probably that would be a good thing to. I will do that research and then will show it to you in the future.
Because I'd like to know how much American money is being invested.
Yeah, that is also an interesting. Yeah, and where the Chinese economy is now, I think, in a crossroad, given the competition between China and United States. So I think we will see some significant Chinese economic policy changes. I think in the coming 1 or 2 years, because I see that the current system cannot go on because the American has been printing so much money, and therefore, when the money pour into the pool, a large amount of liquid, they call it liquidation, a large number of currencies or money is thrown into the same pool. So the value of each items in the pool has to increase. For example, we are talking about 1 million barrels of oil. Previously, the amount circulating in the oil market is say $100 million. So that will make one barrel $1. But suddenly you have $2 million flowing in the system. So your barrel of oil will have becomes $2 per barrel, because after all you are only 100 million barrels per day or per year. You can't change that. That is a physical limiting factor, but the number of money pouring in increased. So there is an inherent inflation. The cost of the oil increased because of this money pouring into the commodity market. So we see our commodity market going up, the stock market going up. This is where money can easily park to try to make a profit. That means we will be expecting inflation. But China have two ways to handle this. One is maintain its currency values against the US dollars. So if China say 6 renminbi equals to 1 US dollars, just an example, I think the value changes over time. If they maintain that number, then for the Chinese government, when they buy resources, the resources had reason to say initially one US dollars per unit, now increases to $2 per unit. That means the input into manufacturing in China will double, because you maintain your $6 to 1, and then buying the same thing needs $2. That means you will have to spend 12 renminbi to buy the same thing, and therefore your products have to increase in cost when you deliver to your market, and therefore there will be inflation. So that inflation will be taken up by Chinese people, and then when that product sells to the rest of the world, there will be inflation pressure as well. Okay, but if China say, okay, since you guys have been printing so much money, I will print my money as well, so that I also increase our money supply as much as you increase money supply. Then, to me, I am pumping more money into my economy, and therefore everything in my economy will increase in price, which will balance off the increase in price from outside as input costs. So that's one way. But unfortunately, what we have seen is that over the last year, China didn't do it. China haven't print money. If China haven't print money, that means the Chinese money remain constant in value, whereas the rest of the commodity has inflation. So what can Chinese do? Another way to do it is adjust the exchange rate. It used to be 6 renminbi for 1 US dollars. Okay, so if I'm using that $6 to buy, I will need 12. But if I adjust my renminbi to foreign to $3, so your $2 becomes $6 in renminbi. It's the same. So China will escape this inflation by adjusting its foreign at the exchange value. So I'm saying that China is going to have to do it. Otherwise, it is importing inflation into the Chinese economy. But if Chinese adjust its currency, then it will not import the inflation, but export the inflation to the rest of the world, because now the Chinese goods value in renminbi is more expensive to the rest of the world. So the rest of the world have to bear the inflation. Now, when the rest of the world bear the inflation, that means our values will be decreasing in value, our money, inflation factor. And therefore, the bank interest have to at least compensate for our inflation. So the bank interest will go up. At the moment, the bank interest is almost zero.
Terrible.
But when the bank interest go up, the implication for our government is the interest to the government's debts is increasing. That will be cost linked to our government debts. That means more government revenue will have to service the debts in the form of interest, meaning the services the government can deliver to us had to decrease to balance the book, or the government lend more money, increase its negative, increase its debts, which will increase the interest. So either way, either the government cut services or the government increase. Now, when the government cuts services, who will suffer? Of course, we common people. And then this is on top of inflation. So we are running into a collapsing economical cycle. Government increase debts, making our inflation higher, and then the inflation higher increases the interest rate, causing more interest, more government revenue to service the interest, cutting services, making our life worse, pushing the inflation up again. Because of that, unemployment might go down because of this hardship. The economy go down, that means government still maintain its service, lend more, and this is a vicious cycle. So government printing money do have consequences. And that, unfortunately, we don't see any way out. For example, the American government's debt is about 28 billion US dollars at the moment, not billion, sorry, 28 trillion US dollars. So just to service the interest at the moment is about 500 billion. And then they are spending about 700 billion in militaries. So together it's already 1.2 trillion. These two items together is almost half of the US government revenue. This is very scary. And then, yeah. You haven't turned on your mic.
Do you think the US will, the only way out for them is to have a war?
I don't know. Hopefully not.
We hope not.
Yeah, because a war will home.
But they make so much armaments. They need to use
Yeah,
it.
but a war with home in order to force a sufficient generation of economic activity without a consequence of nuclear war. And well, we all know the MAD doctrine, the mutually assured destruction doctrine. So American cannot engage in a war with a military power, with a nuclear power. So, but for any other countries which have no nuclear power, but is large enough for the American to spend a lot of money in military in order to activate its economy. I think Iran is the only country. No other country qualify for that one.
You don't think they'll have a go at China?
Oh, China, no, I don't think so, because China is a military power. We cannot, I hope the Americans are not that stupid.
We hope.
Have you seen the sort of people that are running America?
Unfortunately, yes, they are very stupid, but I hope they are not that stupid. I think at the moment there's a lot of, it's like a cyber reckoning.
Cyber reckoning.
Yeah, there's a lot, but I do hope it is only the reckoning. It's not really getting into very scary.
America to me always needs a war. It's needed a war since the Second World War, because the flywheel of its whole economy is the making of armaments.
Yeah.
So they've always got to have a war going somewhere. You get worried when they don't have a war, and they're ending all their current wars. And I'm just worried, where will the next war be?
Iran.
You think Iran, but they...
I think it's Iran, because Iran qualifies as a large country, and Iran also doesn't have nuclear weapon at the moment. You see, Middle East is a good area.
I know, they got plenty of money.
Yeah, they got plenty of money, so you can burn money on both sides, and then
yeah.
Now Iraq, they're talking about withdrawing.
Yes, it's a big worry.
Afghanistan is withdrawing.
Yes.
Libya is in a mess. Syria, they can't do much because of backing from the Russia. So who else in the Middle East they can start a war?
What about North Korea?
No, North Korea have nuclear weapons. They won't touch North Korea.
They did once before.
Yeah, they did one before, and it wasn't successful. So I don't think they are going to do it again.
But don't you think their wars are not meant to be successful? They've never been successful. They just generate a lot of economic activity for Americans. They make Americans heaps of money.
Yeah.
I know they kill a few soldiers, but no one cares about them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. For the ruling elites, they don't care about ordinary people's life. No, and therefore, but they also worry about their own lives.
Apparently, they've all got themselves properties in New Zealand they're going to flee to.
Yes.
You know, people that are a bit mad don't really think things through. They see themselves as populating a defeated planet with their own spawn. They see themselves, those wealthy people, as being the only survivors. They see it as credible that they will survive.
Yeah, I would, if I were an advisor to the Iran authorities, I would suggest them to assassinate and make it known that it had assassinated somebody, provoke a war with Iran. So
Israel's tried this.
Yes.
Yeah, make it personally responsible. Don't let them hide behind country protection. So, for example, if, for example, Iraq has murdered George W. Bush, I think the Americans will be behaving much better.
No one will worry.
So they should actually aim at arranging some, let's say, sacrificial warriors to assassinate. And that is the only way to stop the American aggression, to make the politicians who advocate war to be personally responsible. We cannot get these people into the what's that? The court of the
International Court.
Because
yeah, but
they hide behind their.
They don't recognize that. The US doesn't recognize the Hague.
No.
Yeah. So you doesn't recognize the Hague, but I can use bullet.
Yeah.
So the only way to stop American aggression, for example, for Iran, unfortunately, is assassination of politicians who advocate military actions towards Iran. So Iran have to study this. If I was an advisor to them, I think Iran have to study this method. Not good. I know it's very dirty. It's ugly.
Won't work. The Americans actually need a war.
Yes, they need a war.
Their whole economy is based on that armament sales. They've got to use up a lot of armaments.
And therefore, you have to make these people themselves responsible. For example, assassinate the chief executive of Boeing.
But there are other places in the world too. I mean, since Biden came to power, there's been unrest in Cuba. Now there's unrest in Tripoli, in Libya, in Lebanon. There are quite a few places around the world that are, and one place in South America. Is it Peru that's got a new leader that is left-leaning?
If they started some war in America, whether it's South America or Northern America, it is a fire too close to home. Cuba is too small.
Yeah.
How much money you can spend in killing Cuba people?
Not enough.
Not enough. Not enough. Venezuela is another one. More people there for them to spend money on, to kill.
That's an awful subject.
But Iran, I really think Iran is a hot target at the moment. They are very, very bad position at the moment. But unfortunately, I don't know if it's true or not, but hopefully not true. But
do you think that would upset the Russians?
Russians, no, again, they won't touch Russia. Because,
no, but do you think if they go to war with Iran for some trumped up excuse that they will use, will Russia get upset?
Yes, it will. Just like Russia get upset with Syria. The issue with Russia is Russia's economy is based on selling its resources, oil and gas.
And Kalashnikovs.
Yeah, and therefore it will need Iran and Syria in order to maintain its oil and gas sale. So Russia will be very, very hot if American dare to touch Iran. And that's the reason why we have the nuclear armament agreements of Iran, but unfortunately, not Obama. Trump withdrew from it.
But I think Biden's trying to get back in, isn't he?
Oh, now the condition is now not set by American now. You have to go back to the agreement before we can negotiate new agreement. But Biden obviously want to negotiate new agreement, and therefore I don't think you will get a lot of advance at the moment. Just like with North Korea. Not at the problem is Iran didn't get its nuclear weapon fast enough. Unlike North Korea, North Korea really worked hard to get its nuclear weapon. Once it got the nuclear weapon, now Iran is stable. Now it can concentrate on its own development.
Couldn't they get something off Pakistan?
There's
The
another
Iranians, they're
possibility.
all Muslims, so they could feel
Yeah,
troubled,
there's another possibility.
you know.
So unfortunately, we know nuclear proliferation is not good for the world. But unfortunately, at the moment, it is also this dangerous weapon which keeps the world safe. Unfortunately, very, very unfortunate.
Can I just ask if the growth of very, very wealthy people in China, will this become a problem if they have umpteen billionaires and lots of influence? Is this going to be a problem in a socialist oriented economy?
Yes, it is a problem, and therefore the Chinese government is now reining in the billionaires. We heard about Jack Ma.
Yes.
Yeah, the Chinese government is reining in the very, very rich.
In what way?
I think Crown Casino is trying to help the very rich.
And they are being reined in by our government. Yeah, the Chinese government is very aware of the power of the very, very rich, the super rich. And so they are now, but the way to do it is, for example, when Alibaba becomes so successful, then Chinese government will force the Alibaba to accept investment from the Chinese government to dilute your power. So the Chinese government becomes a major shareholder of Alibaba, and therefore it rein it in. So that is one way to do it.
Mr. Putin has another way.
Yeah, the Putin's way,
Puts them in jail.
Yeah, that's another way. Find something and then put you in jail. That's the other way. But unfortunately, life is like that, isn't it? You allow this super rich to become too rich, you have problem. Just like the American problem. The super rich is too rich. That is the problem. So Chinese government is not going to allow super rich to be super rich. The super rich is only the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. But whether you like it or not, I think we have to be pragmatic. We may have different ideology and say, oh, we should allow them to be very, very rich. Yeah, they are rich enough, but cannot so rich that you challenge the state authority. I think state authority still should be above rather than below this super rich. But unfortunately today, America has developed so that the super rich is above.
Yeah, they hold the power.
Yeah, they hold too much power.
Yeah.
Any more question? No?
It's all very bleak.
I don't know whether we will. Are we relaxing the?
Yes, I think we'll be back in the classroom next week. You know, for this class.
But I think I want to at least keep next week online.
All right, that's okay.
Yeah, I will keep next week online, and then if they surely relax, then we will come back to class.
Yeah, we could go back next week if you wanted to, but if you want to stay online, stay online.
Yeah,
we'll be allowed to have the pre-lockdown conditions, I should think. Yeah. According to today's thing, but I've got to wait for the City of Whitehorse to give us the go-ahead.
The final approval.
Yes, and they
Yeah.
take the
Okay,
time.
but anyway, at the moment we'll keep next week online as well.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
try and remember. I apologize. I forgot last week. And before that, I was in Tasmania walking, so I didn't.
That's
My
it, ma'am.
NBN was down last week.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We'll create this today a bit earlier. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you, Albert.
Good to
Very
see you.
interesting
Well,
discussion.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
yeah,
Okay.
bit
Bye.
depressing, Albert.
Okay.